Dragon is in countdown. Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
You are looking live at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. In just over 27 minutes, this Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 29th Commercial Resupply Services mission from both NASA and SpaceX to the International Space Station. Good evening and welcome to live coverage of the CRS-29 launch. I'm NASA's Jasmine Hopkins. Today's launch is the first live broadcast available on NASA's newest free streaming platform, NASA Plus. Scan the QR code on your screen now for more mission coverage, new original content, and to put the NASA universe at your fingertips. For CRS-29, fueling of the Falcon 9 began about 12 minutes ago, and we're counting down to an instantaneous launch at 8:28 and 14 seconds Eastern Time. This mission will deliver over 6,000 pounds of science supplies and equipment to the space station. And commercial resupply missions help NASA and our partners continue research to better our life right here on Earth and help us explore deep space. So let's go now to SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, where Jesse Anderson is standing by to tell us more about the vehicle supporting today's mission. Jesse?
Thanks, Jasmine. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a manufacturing engineering manager for Falcon here at SpaceX. It's great to be covering today's mission in partnership with NASA, marking SpaceX's 81st launch of the year. Now, on your screen in a second, there you go. You can see a live view of SpaceX's two-stage Falcon 9 rocket with our Dragon spacecraft at the very top. Today marks SpaceX's sixth and final mission to the space station for 2023. And in fact, this will mark the most flights Dragon has flown to the orbiting laboratory in any single year. Since taking flight in 2010, Dragon remains one of the few vehicles that can deliver significant cargo to the space station and the only vehicle that can deliver cargo from the space station. It's a fully autonomous vehicle, which means it's capable of flying itself to and from its destinations. Today, Dragon has visited the station 38 times and transported more than 300,000 pounds of cargo back and forth from the orbiting laboratory. It's also the first private spacecraft to take humans to the space station. Falcon 9 and Dragon were both designed with reflight in mind, and the vehicle hardware is built to support multiple missions with minimal refurbishment. Today's Dragon is flying for its second time and marks SpaceX's 21st reuse of the vehicle. Below Dragon is Falcon 9, which you can think of as two rockets built in one. The lower part, which is also the larger part of the rocket, is called the first stage. The first stage has 9 Merlin 1D engines, which accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere and into various orbits in space. At the top of the first stage is the black inner stage, and above that is the Falcon 9 second stage. The two stages will separate about 2.5 minutes into flight, and then the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum, or what we call the MVAC engine, which is the 10th engine on the rocket, to carry Dragon to its desired orbit. Now, like Dragon today, the Falcon 9 first stage is flying for its second time as well, and we plan to recover it back on land at Landing Zone 1, located at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, completing the first return to launch site for a Dragon cargo mission. Now, so far, we've reflown 214 first stages, and that includes Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. If successful, it will mark the 243rd recovery of an orbital-class rocket. As the clock approaches T0, let's head over to NASA's Steve Seifaloff at Cape Canaveral to talk about today's weather. Steve, how's it going over there?
Well, the weather is terrific, Jesse. 100% go. In the words of Launch Weather Officer Melody Lovin, it's as good as it gets. And with that, welcome inside Hangar AE here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, just a couple miles down from Launch Complex 39A. From here, we're going to monitor the launch team as they take us through tonight's countdown. So far, the nets have been relatively quiet, which is a good sign. The vehicle is healthy. The team's not working any issues. The teams performed a hot fire test just a couple days ago to prove the rocket was ready. The brief engine firing of about a second is a routine test that allows the turbopumps and engine machinery of the Falcon 9 first stage to spin up long enough for engineers to evaluate the system. After that evaluation, the NASA and SpaceX teams yesterday cleared the rocket and spacecraft for launch today. The 45th Space Wing says the eastern range is green, and that means our path from here to the International Space Station is clear and safe. Again, the weather tonight is terrific, 100% go. Still, the launch weather officer Melody Lovin will be monitoring the clouds for potential violations. There is a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind from the ocean, but that's not nearly enough to affect the rocket as it climbs through the atmosphere and into orbit. After its work is done, the first stage will come back here to land at Landing Zone 1, about a mile or so away. That is different from recent cargo launches to the space station that saw the first stage land offshore on a drone ship. And to save you a Google search, the first cargo mission to see the first stage return to land was CRS-9 back in 2016. Right now, SpaceX is fueling the Falcon 9 with RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, and super cold liquid oxygen. That is minus 297 degrees, and it is also being loaded into the first stage and second stage. And it's that liquid oxygen turning into a gas and venting into the air that is producing the white clouds you see around the rocket. All rockets are designed with valves that open to allow the oxygen to boil off to maintain the right pressure in the tanks. Those clouds form when the oxygen makes contact with Florida's humid air. Our launch time tonight is 8:28 and 14 seconds, and the launch window is instantaneous to put the spacecraft on course to dock with the International Space Station on Saturday, November 11th at 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time. For more on that, let's head over to Chelsea Bayarte inside NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston.
Thanks, Steve, and welcome to the International Space Station's Flight Control Room here inside Mission Control. I'm Chelsea Bayarte, live in NASA's Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas. Teams of flight controllers are behind me monitoring tonight's launch with Flight Director Garrett Henn at the helm. Mission Control is go for launch, meaning the space station is ready to receive the spacecraft, and we're not tracking any issues that would prevent a docking. From here on out, mission controllers will observe the launch and monitor the Dragon vehicle during all milestones of its flight. The astronauts on board are likely to be asleep at the time of launch. There are 7 people living aboard the International Space Station now: NASA astronauts Jasmine Mogbelli and Laurel O'Hara, Andreas Mogensen from Denmark, Satoshi Furukawa from Japan, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Konstantin Borisov, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub. When the Cargo Dragon arrives on November 11th, it will dock autonomously, but O'Hara and Mogbelli will be on deck to monitor its arrival. The crew will first unpack the more time-sensitive science experiments and cargo, and then, as the week goes on, continue to unpack their delivery. They'll be receiving some pizza kits, olives, an assortment of cheeses, and some holiday treats like pumpkin spice cappuccino, cranberry sauce, and chocolate. So I'm sure they're looking forward to it. In the meantime, here in Mission Control, everything is still a go, and we're looking forward to following along with the Cargo Dragon during its journey to the International Space Station. So for now, let's go back to Kennedy. Jasmine?
Thank you so much for those updates, Chelsea and team. We are now at T-minus 19 minutes and counting from liftoff of the 29th Commercial Resupply Services mission from NASA and SpaceX. This mission will carry 6,505 pounds of cargo, including supplies to support the crew on board, spacewalk equipment, vehicle hardware, computer resources, and of course, science investigations. So let's take a closer look at what's on board. Launching on this mission is part of NASA's first two-way laser communications relay system known as ILLUMA-T. After attaching to the outside of the space station, this laser communications terminal will send and receive data through NASA's LCRD satellite on orbit. Using invisible infrared light, laser communications can transmit data up to 100 times faster than traditional radio frequency systems. ILLUMA-T brings this capability to the International Space Station, enabling more data to be transmitted and received. And of course, more data means more discoveries. Also on this mission is the atmospheric waves experiment known as AW. This heliophysics experiment will capture the first global observations of atmospheric gravity waves that form near the surface and impact Earth's upper atmosphere. Increasing our understanding of these waves could teach us more about Earth's atmosphere, climate, and near-Earth space weather. AW is also part of what NASA is calling the Heliophysics Big Year, a global celebration of solar science and the sun's influence on Earth and the entire solar system. Our work in low Earth orbit is, of course, paving the way to deep space as we shoot for the moon and beyond. Around this time last year, Artemis 1 lifted off, and for Artemis 2, NASA plans to send a crew of 4 astronauts around the moon farther than humanity has ever gone before. To learn how about we're getting there, let's check out our Artemis Moon Minute. Preparations for NASA's Artemis 2 mission are underway at Kennedy Space Center. Engineers inside the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building connected the 2 major components of the Artemis 2 Orion spacecraft, the crew and service modules. Once in space, these important pieces of hardware will fly the Artemis 2 crew around the moon and back. The 10 solid rocket booster motor segments for the Artemis 2 Space Launch System rocket arrived by rail at Kennedy, traveling from Utah across 8 states in specialized transporters. Kennedy teams also are conducting several water deluge tests at Launch Pad 39B, releasing approximately 400,000 gallons of water onto the mobile launcher's deck, flame hole, and the pad's flame deflector. By helping to deflect overpressurization and suppress the sound produced at liftoff, the water deluge system is critical for protecting the crew, rocket, spacecraft, and pad structures during launch. That's your Artemis Moon Minute. The Artemis missions intend to land the first woman and first person of color on the moon, and these goals are characterized by NASA's graphic novel, First Woman. This is the fictional story of Callie Rodriguez, the first woman to explore the lunar surface. Her struggles and triumphs were inspired by the lives of many real NASA astronauts, like Jasmine McBelly and Laurel O'Hara, who are part of the current space station crew. The second volume of this story with new characters and new technologies is available now in both English and Spanish, and the astronauts on station are in for a real treat because we're sending them a copy with today's launch. You can follow Callie's adventures on NASA's websites and our social media. Now we're just about T-minus 14 minutes and counting from liftoff of CRS-29 from both NASA and SpaceX to the International Space Station. So let's bring back Jesse now to tell us more about SpaceX and their